The morning everything changed began with the sound of breaking glass, a heavy silence, and a smile I never expected to see again. I had spent months believing that life had already taken everything worth hoping for. Then, in the middle of an ordinary neighborhood, one simple joke led to a moment that slowly transformed two lonely lives forever. Sometimes, destiny does not arrive with fireworks or grand speeches. Sometimes it quietly walks across the street carrying a cup of coffee and a heart that has been waiting just as long as yours. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the incredible ways life brings people together, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to American Human Stories. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us all that love often arrives when we least expect it. My name is Daniel, and I had learned to expect very little from life. After losing my wife to a long illness 3 years earlier, every day became another quiet routine. I worked as a carpenter, fixed whatever people needed, paid my bills, and returned to an empty house every evening. My greatest conversations were with old photographs hanging on the living room wall. Friends encouraged me to move on, but grief doesn't follow anyone else's calendar. Across the street lived Claire, a woman around my age who had moved into the neighborhood nearly a year earlier. She kept mostly to herself, greeted everyone politely, watered her flowers every evening, and smiled in a way that somehow looked both warm and deeply sad. The neighbors whispered that she had gone through a painful divorce, but no one knew much more than that. Our friendship began with ordinary things. One afternoon, I helped her carry several heavy boxes into her garage after the delivery driver left them outside. A few days later, she surprised me with homemade cookies as a thank you. Then, she started bringing over extra soup whenever she cooked too much. Soon, we found ourselves chatting across the fence about gardening, old movies, and the strange habit squirrels had of stealing tomatoes. We never forced conversations. They simply happened little by little until seeing each other became one of the happiest parts of our day. One Saturday morning, I was repairing my old pickup truck before driving to an important construction interview that could finally improve my finances. The engine refused to cooperate. My hands were covered in grease and frustration was beginning to win. Claire stepped outside carrying her watering can and laughed softly at the sight of me arguing with an engine that clearly wasn't listening. Trying to hide my disappointment, I jokingly told her that if she wanted me to have any luck today, she probably owed me a lucky hug. Instead of laughing and walking away, she smiled with unexpected warmth and replied that if one hug wasn't enough, she was willing to give as many as I needed. Her words caught me completely off guard. The hug itself lasted only a few seconds, but something inside both of us quietly changed. That interview did not go as planned. The company unexpectedly postponed hiring because of budget cuts. I drove home feeling defeated, convinced that my little moment of hope had been nothing more than coincidence. Yet, when I parked outside my house, Claire was waiting on her porch with 2 cups of coffee. She never asked whether I got the job. Somehow, she already knew the answer from the expression on my face. Instead of offering empty encouragement, she simply sat beside me on the porch for nearly an hour while we watched children ride bicycles down the street. Sometimes silence speaks more loudly than words, and that afternoon, her quiet presence reminded me that I was no longer facing disappointment alone. As the seasons changed, so did our friendship. We began helping each other without keeping score. When my roof leaked during a storm, she insisted on bringing dinner while I made repairs. When her father became seriously ill in another city, I drove her to the airport before sunrise without hesitation. Every shared challenge slowly replaced loneliness with trust. For the first time in years, my house felt alive again. The empty evenings disappeared, replaced by conversations over coffee, board games during rainy nights, and laughter that neither of us realized we had missed so much. Then life tested us again. Claire's father passed away unexpectedly. She returned home carrying more grief than luggage. Losing him reopened every wound left behind by her difficult marriage. She blamed herself for not spending enough time with him during his final months. I recognized that familiar guilt because I had carried my own after losing my wife. Instead of pretending to have perfect answers, I simply stayed beside her. Some evenings we talked until midnight. Other evenings we sat quietly beneath the stars without saying anything at all. Healing rarely happens through speeches. More often it happens because someone chooses not to walk away. Months later, my own struggle arrived. The small construction company where I finally found steady work announced it was closing. Once again, I faced unemployment, overdue bills, and uncertainty. I tried hiding my worries from everyone, but Claire noticed immediately. The following morning, she placed a folded envelope inside my mailbox. It wasn't money. Inside was a handwritten letter reminding me of every person I had helped since moving into the neighborhood. She listed elderly neighbors whose fences I repaired without charging them, children whose bicycles I fixed, families whose broken furniture I restored, and strangers who still waved every time they drove past my house. At the bottom, she wrote that someone capable of changing so many lives could never truly fail. Reading those words brought tears I had spent years refusing to shed. Inspired by her faith, I decided to start my own woodworking business in my garage instead of waiting for another company to hire me. The beginning was difficult. Orders arrived slowly. Some weeks I questioned whether I had made a terrible mistake, but neighbors started recommending my work to friends. Those friends recommended me to others. Within a year, I was building handcrafted furniture for customers across across the county. Every table, chair, and bookshelf carried a small engraved message underneath that read, "Built with hope." Most customers never noticed it, but I did, because hope was exactly what someone had rebuilt inside me. One evening, almost 2 years after that simple lucky hug, our neighborhood organized its annual community picnic. Families laughed, children played, and music filled the park. Looking around, I realized I was no longer watching life from the sidelines. I was living it again. Claire stood beside me, smiling as the sunset painted the sky in soft shades of orange and blue. Without planning it, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she gently squeezed it as though she had been waiting for that moment just as patiently as I had. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to American Human Stories. Stories like these continue because viewers like you choose to spread kindness and encouragement. Before we reach the ending, tell us in the comments, have you ever met someone who quietly changed your life when you needed it most? Standing there beside Claire, I finally understood that the luck I thought I had been searching for was never about jobs, money, or perfect timing. Real luck was finding someone who stayed during the difficult days, celebrated the small victories, and reminded me that broken hearts can heal without forgetting the people they once loved. Our story didn't erase the pain of the past. Instead, it proved that love doesn't replace precious memories. It gently grows beside them. Sometimes the smallest joke leads to the greatest blessing, and sometimes destiny begins with nothing more than a friendly smile across the street and a heart willing to believe in second chances. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to American Human Stories for more heartfelt tales of love, hope, and second chances.